Hello and welcome to this UniTaster On Demand event today. My name is John Cheek. I'm here from UniTasterDays. It's my job to introduce the event and introduce our speaker. The subject we're going to be looking at today is law, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Dr. Yvonne joining us from Royal Holloway, University of London. Yvonne is a lecturer and is going to cover why you might want to consider studying law, what to expect on it, and I know Yvonne's going to mention a few cases and legal cases that you might well study if you do decide to study law. Yvonne's also going to mention some application tips and an overview of potential careers, because a lot of people think, look at law and think they can just go on to be a solicitor and barrister. And Yvonne will talk about some of the other routes and some of the other opportunities that's available for you. But with that, if I can pass things over to Dr. Yvonne Jacobs, joining us from Royal Holloway, University of London. Thank you.
So I'm going to just give an overview, just give you an idea of what studying law at university is really like. So the first question is, why study law as an undergraduate in the first place? Students decide to do law for a number of reasons, and they're not always the right reasons. So one of my aims today is just to try and give you some pointers to see whether law is really for you. So why study law as an undergraduate? The most important reason is that law interests you and you want to be challenged, because you're going to be spending 3 years studying a subject which is a challenging subject. Now, it is incredibly rewarding. So if law really interests you, studying at undergraduate level is going to give you the opportunity to develop a whole load of really useful and diverse skills, to get a really good grounding in legal knowledge, which is so useful for so many things in the real world. So if law genuinely interests you, then there's a good chance this is going to be the right degree for you. And you may be thinking, well, I've never studied law. How do I know whether it's going to interest me or not? So I'll be giving a few examples of things that you might be studying on a law degree in a minute. But a couple of reasons why students will often choose to do law that on their own may not be the best reasons. And the first is that they study law because they want to be a lawyer. And this may sound really obvious. Yes, in order to become a lawyer, at some point you do have to study law. But not everybody who starts on a law degree starts intending to work as a lawyer afterwards. Or sometimes people think they might want to, but then decide there's something else they prefer to do afterwards. Now, if you're only studying law to become a lawyer, but you don't have an interest in law, then it may not be the best subject for you, because you may not enjoy your 3 years at university. And if you're not enjoying your subject and participating in all the extracurricular activities surrounding your subject, then you may not do as well as you could maybe otherwise do with another subject. So another myth in law is that everyone who starts an undergraduate law degree goes on to practice as a lawyer and goes into a very high earning job. There are very good jobs out there, and law is a great career to go into, but it's also very competitive. So again, if law interests you and you're thinking about being a lawyer, that's a good reason to study. If you're just thinking of doing law as a means to an end because you eventually want to practice as a lawyer, but you don't really have sufficient interest to be spending your 3 undergraduate years studying it in depth at an academic level, then you might want to consider other options. It is getting relatively easy to qualify as a lawyer without having studied law at an undergraduate level. There are lots of options available. If you graduate in any discipline, you can go on to study law and qualify as a lawyer afterwards. Now, obviously, there's financial implications and it's going to take longer. So it's just important to be aware that you don't have to study law at an undergraduate level in order to go on to be a lawyer. And not everyone who starts a law degree is doing it with the intention of practicing. So whether you decide you think you want to be a lawyer or not, if you have an interest in law and you want to be challenged, one of the things that you will develop on the law degree is a range of really useful transferable skills. And these will apply to careers in law or most graduate careers. So analytical, critical thinking. We encourage you on a law degree not just to try and understand what the law is, but we want your opinions about what you think the law should be. Do you think the law is fair? Does it maybe disadvantage certain sectors of society? So we will be encouraging you to think critically about the law, and these critical and analytical skills you get are going to be useful for so many other jobs afterwards. You'll develop really good written and oral communication skills, problem-solving skills. For law, there's a lot of research involved, much of it online. So you'll develop skills in these areas, and very important commercial awareness for so many other jobs afterwards. So just to stress, the most important reason to study law is that you are genuinely interested in the content of law, that you want to spend your 3 years developing your interest, maybe specializing, and that you are picking it because you are going to be enjoying your studies and in turn are probably then going to be doing well in them. So what do you expect to study law? As a starting point, there isn't a huge amount of difference between the subjects that you would study and the content, depending on the university that you choose to go to. And there's over 100 universities that offer law in the UK. So I'll explain in a minute why we have compulsory subjects within law. But there are differences in the length and type of degree. So for example, a standard law degree will be 3 years. But if you have an interest in another subject, so you are very interested in law and you want to study law at university, but there's maybe an A-level subject that you particularly enjoyed and were good at, and you want to study it further, or maybe a new subject that you want to pick up, a lot of universities will offer law with another subject. Now, sometimes this could be part of a 4-year degree. For example, you can study law with a language, and then maybe the opportunity to spend a year abroad as well. Some universities will offer a 4-year degree and 1 year spent in industry, and this can be very good for employment prospects. And finally, there's some universities that will offer a 4-year law degree with a foundation course. And you might be considering this if you are really keen to study law and you think, you have a lot of interest, you'll be good at it, but maybe your grades are not quite what the admission tutors are looking for. It may be possible for you to do a foundation year to get your skills up to scratch and then go on to study law. So when you're looking at which university to go to study for, rather than the content of the law degree, you're looking at differences in whether it's 3 or 4 years and whether you can study anything else with it. So wherever you go to study, in pretty much every university that offers law, there will be at least 7 subjects on the syllabus that are compulsory. And these are known as foundations of legal knowledge. These have been chosen by the professional bodies of in England and Wales as to be essential for the study and the practice of law. So even if you necessarily are not going to practice in these areas, in order to take your law studies further and to go on to qualify as a lawyer, or even to go on to study the optional subjects, you'll have to have a good grounding in these subjects. So these are known as foundations of legal knowledge. What would you actually study in each of these subjects? So law involves a lot of reading, and what you'll be spending a lot of your time reading are known as legal cases. And these are judgments. So these are cases that have got before the courts, and then the judges have had to decide how to interpret legislation, how they want to apply the law to the particular facts, for example. And the way that you learn not just the legal principles, but also you learn how judges reason and what kind of factors that they take into account in reaching their decisions. Are there, for example, economic considerations? Are there matters of policy that are considered? By reading cases, you will really learn to apply the law to specific situations. So if you've never studied law before and you're thinking, well, I don't really know whether I have an interest, what I would recommend is that either you take a screenshot or you pause the video now and make a note of some of these cases. So these are fairly typical cases that you'd study on any undergraduate law degree. I've picked one from each of these compulsory subjects so that you have an idea of the range of interest that you're going to cover. Now, if you type any of these into an internet search engine, you will find the facts of the case and you'll find a summary of the legal decision. I wouldn't recommend doing this when you start your law studies. We will teach you research skills. It's very important that you use specific legal databases to make sure that you are reading the original decisions and the law is up to date. But if you just want to have an idea of what reading a case is about and how you might be spending your time at university, if you take any of these examples, type them into a search engine, and then you will find details. So just to give you a very quick overview, the contract case there is about an advertising company that made a very bold promise of a reward if their product didn't work, and it didn't. Miller and Jackson for tort law. This is about the law of nuisance, and it's a dispute involving a cricket club and Mrs. Miller, who lived next door and was complaining about cricket balls, and the court had to decide, should they stop cricket being played? Criminal law, we have a very well-known case of Dudley and Stevens that involved some shipwrecked sailors, and they were starving. They made the decision that the only way to survive was that they would have to murder one of their the weaker members of their team, and they did, and they ate him, and the law had to consider whether that was justifiable. It wasn't. Property law, Waverley Borough Council. This was a case involving the concepts of are finders really keepers. So Mr. Fletcher, using his metal detector, had found a brooch from the days of Henry VIII buried in the earth on a park. So who was the legal owner there? Who had was entitled to ownership? Was it Mr. Fletcher who found the brooch, or was it the council who owned the park? The law of equity looks at trusts, and the example here is a trust left in a will by George Bernard Shaw to do with an alphabet, where he wanted to rewrite the alphabet, and there was a question about whether this trust was charitable or not. And then we have a public law case involving the model Naomi Campbell and a dispute with Mirror News Group, who were publishing information about her recovery from a drug addiction. She was claiming she had a right to a private life and they shouldn't have published the material. They were claiming they had a right to freedom of expression. And this case looked at how the European Human Rights Act works and whether individuals have a right to rights under them. And then finally, European Union law, United Brands and Commission is about, well, bananas. So this case involved a decision by the court about whether bananas were unique or whether they were simply a type of soft fruit. So I will leave you to look at those cases and see what the judges said, but these are all on undergraduate syllabuses. They are all cases that you would study in a lot more detail if you decided to study law. And this will give you a feel of what you'll be spending your part of your time doing. So these are the foundations of legal knowledge. These are essential to study. Once you've studied these, you'll start getting a feel for where your interests lie, because they are very different, and where your skills lie. And then normally for your final year, and sometimes for 1 or 2 modules in the second year, you'll be able to pick optional modules. Now, this gives you a range of the options that can be offered. Not every option is taught in every university. I wouldn't advise choosing your university based on the options that are being offered at the time you apply, because these change from year to year. So you might be very interested in asylum and immigration law, and it may be that the university teach it when you apply, but by the time you get to the third year, it may no longer be on offer. But this gives you a good idea of some of the things that you can choose to specialize in and your final years of study at university, and also if you then decide to go on to a career in law. And you can see there's a wide range of interests. So you might be interested in the more kind of corporate, company, commercial, intellectual property law, or you might be more interested in international law, public international human rights. You might be interested in some of the more niche areas like sports law, media law. This gives you an idea of the range of subjects that you might have an opportunity from choosing from, and can perhaps go on to use your law in your future career. Law isn't just about the content of the syllabus and in exams. There are a range of optional activities that are offered by universities that offer law, and you can expect to include things like legal clinics or pro bono centres. And these will give you the opportunity, with some training and careful supervision, of giving free legal advice to the members of the local community while you're still studying. There's also lots of competitions that you can take part in internally and externally from the university to improve your oral communication skills. So mooting is like a mock trial. You're presenting a legal argument before a judge, and then you have negotiating, debating competitions. And universities will often offer things like mock trials, court visits. So the reason to take part in these is not just to improve your skills, but they also are going to help your employment prospects. And also they're fun. So we want you to make the most of studying law, and that doesn't include just the content of the syllabus, but all the kind of other law-related activities. And then all universities will offer careers opportunities and careers guidance. So you may decide to study law, but not really have an idea of where your skills will be best suited, or what the options are after you graduate. University will have careers departments to help you decide on what opportunities are available. So what can you do with a law degree? The two main professions within law are solicitors and barristers, and the training for these is separate. Now, you will not be able to be qualified as either of these on graduation. There will be more study, more exams, more work experience that you're going to have to do in order to qualify as a solicitor or a barrister. But a law degree is a good starting point. Just to stress, as I said earlier, particularly in order to qualify as a solicitor, you don't need to have a degree in law. The rules changed last year. You need a degree, but it can be in any subject. And then you can then arrange to pay for some individual tuition or sign up to a course and then prepare for these exams. So you will need to study law at some point, but you don't need a law degree in order to qualify as a solicitor. And then the barrister, typically the training here would be 2 years, a bar training course normally studied at a specialist law school or at university, and then a year of pupillage, which is on the job training. So a law degree will set you up to go on to do these further studies. There are some positions that you can go into with a law degree. So straight after graduation, you could take up a position as a paralegal or a legal executive. These are working in law firms. You're not qualified as a lawyer, but you're working in a law firm, and the knowledge and skills that you have gained from your law degree are going to help with your job there. These are often done by students who would ideally like to qualify as solicitors, but have not been offered the training opportunities. And it's a way of getting some additional experience with a hope that in the future that they can then use this in order to qualify as a solicitor, but they are careers in their own right. And then there's a few specialist careers. So for the last three, you don't have to be a qualified lawyer. You would need to sit specialist exams. So if you're particularly interested, for example, in intellectual property, there is a specialist training to become a patent attorney. If you're interested in buying and selling property, then you might be looking to train as a licensed conveyancer. And finally, if you're interested in business, you could work as a company secretary. And there's further training, but your law degree, your knowledge and skills will stand you in good stead. Alternative careers. So I mentioned that a law degree is very good for employment prospects, and employers know that you typically have good grades to be accepted to study law, that you've worked hard and the degree itself is challenging, and that you have acquired a range of really good transferable skills. So really any graduate training job where you don't need a specialist subject would be available to consider. But kinds of things that seem to attract law graduates: general civil service jobs, government jobs, charities, NGOs and think tanks. If you're interested in criminal law, things to do with the police and security. And then you have jobs like legal publishing, where the job is publishing, but the knowledge of law and the written communication skills and attention to detail that you will have developed when studying law is going to help you in that career. And then we have general banking, finance, accountancy, HR, and recruitment. But really, a law degree, whatever you decide to do with it afterwards, is going to set you up as a good foundation for employment afterwards. So some application tips. I mentioned that it's so important that law is right for you and you really have an interest. One way that, if you have the opportunity of finding out more, is to attend any kind of taster courses or summer schools. So they may be offered at universities that you don't have any interest in actually applying to, but if you are able to take part in any kind of course, anything that is going to help you experience what law would be like to study, then that's going to help you with your decision. Open days are absolutely crucial because you have to pick a university that's right for you. There's not a huge difference in content, as I said, between the different law courses. So really your decision may be down to where you want to be based, what part of the country. Would you want a campus university or a city university, etc.? And it's important to see what is offered by the university in terms of curricular activities, etc. But basically, you're going to do the best where you are happiest. So try and find somewhere that is right for you. In terms of developing your legal interests, you can read a lot about current legal issues in the news. You can visit a court. And with your application form, what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for you to demonstrate that you have the potential to do well in law. So some of the skills that I've mentioned, if you can give examples of something that you've done, whether it's at school, university, college, whether it's a part-time job that you have, for example, if you can show a skill that you think is relevant and explain how you think that that will help you studying law. And then law is all about written communication, expressing yourself. So pay close attention to not just what you write on your application form, but how you write it. It has to be well presented. You have to just be very careful of things like grammar. Lawyers care about details, so you want to make sure it's well presented. And then mostly really try to convey your enthusiasm for law and something about your personality. So rather than just writing that you want to study law because it's law's a great career and you get good employment prospects, we know all of that, but why do you want to study law? Why are you enthusiastic about it? We want enthusiasm. We want to know that you're picking it for the right reasons, and try and get some of your personality in your statement. So they're my main application tips. I just want to finish by saying good luck in whatever you decide to do. So if you decide to study law at university, you will find it incredibly rewarding, but just to stress, make the most of all the other opportunities. You're not just there to sit in the library for 24 hours a day studying. Take part in all the extracurricular activities, whether it's carrying on with a hobby that you particularly enjoyed, or whether you want to pick up a new hobby and try something that you've never done before. Employers, both in law and outside, are looking for well-rounded people. They want people with good time management skills, that people that just have a range of interests. So choose your university where you think you'll be happiest, where you'll have the most opportunities to take part in everything going on the campus. And whatever you decide to do, I just wish you the best of luck. Thank you.